Well, welcome to the official May 1st,
Thanks for ruining
2024 meeting of the Town of Kennebunkport Planning Board. And for attendance, we have the entire board and both alternates. So neither of you will get to vote tonight at all.
Thankfully.
Okay. So,
Glad I came.
all right. First is approval of the minutes that we got fairly recently.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, approved.
Approve.
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 Okay. Well, that brings us to the agenda. Items 1 and 2 of the agenda are continued on receipt, on request of applicant, which brings us right to number 3, which is 28 Wildwood Avenue. It's item 240403. Okay, Terrapin Landscaping is the presenter.
I'm John Schaefer, the property owner.
Okay. Is there a,
No, it's just me.
okay. So I want to tell you that we received a revision to your application today. Therefore, we will discuss that one next week. If there are changes that, we have to discuss that which we had already had for review.
Okay.
We have I believe it's 7 days required. Our former guy back there could tell me for sure, but yeah, I believe it's 7 days is the requirement for, giving us a little time. But getting a PDF of it at 4 in the afternoon is a little soon. Although I do have it here on my iPad. But I did take a quick look, and it's not that much different. I mean, there's a few more colored pages, and it's a little prettier. And
thank you all for your time, and
yeah.
I certainly understand.
So if you would proceed with your application, I guess.
Sure, thank you. And I have 2 hard copies if it's helpful.
Can you come to the microphone, please?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, what you have to realize is that the planning board looks at these applications thoroughly. A lot of us work, we have very busy schedules with family, and we do this, we have applications, usually 2 or 3 we have to go through. And if we don't receive it at least 7 days ahead of time, it makes it very difficult for us to change our schedules and drop everything and look at a revised application. And that's the reason for that rule.
No, I
So.
understand that. My apologies. If you'd like to delay, I can understand that.
Do you need paper copies, each one of you, to be mailed to you of the revisions?
Yeah, and it would be easier if you set the revisions rather than the whole package where there are only about 3 or 4 pages different.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
But
those we could receive, for the next meeting too,
well, I'd rather look at the whole application in its revised form.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I
that would
agree.
be better to just
It would be better
defer this
than-
till next time
Yeah.
and give us the whole application that we
Yeah.
received electronically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also realize that electronically, sometimes it doesn't work. I had a very difficult time with Dropbox, I don't know why, converting to PDF even to pull up those landscape pages to be able to look at them thoroughly. So, electronically, not everything works. And we really do need hard copies sent to us.
Hard copies makes it easier for sure. Get to spread it out.
Yeah, and one addition that you don't have, and I might as well tell you about it right now since I looked.
Yeah, thank you.
You're suggesting taking away some landscaping, or some hardscaping and moving it somewhere else.
Correct.
Before and after. All we have is the after.
Okay.
So we don't see where you found the extra so that you have exactly the same amount.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you. So,
So are we clear, though, exactly what he needs to send us, so in his mind?
his mind, the only thing I wanted was what does the current way it looks.
Okay,
The
so,
current,
but
what is the current approved,
kind of
footprint.
site footprint, and along with what was delivered this afternoon, we're good.
yeah,
Okay. So that's all you need, is just the one addition.
pre-approved plan, so I'll send that, that's
Yeah.
the one.
The
the original plan, yeah.
From 2 years ago. Can I chime in here? I'm a little confused too. As I understand it, this is a new application. This is not a change page.
No, it is not. It's a new application.
So I think it's pretty well defined what's required.
Right.
I'm not sure, Mike, what you were getting
Well,
at.
well,
Is it you're saying we
there's
don't need everything,
Well,
or?
no, I wanted to make sure that the person was
Yeah.
clear exactly what else needed to be delivered, so we were good to go for the next meeting. And what I heard was the only additional thing versus what we have in the plan is the final of the last,
He included the,
Are you saying that, I'm hearing, I'm just trying to follow.
Yeah.
We got something via email.
yeah, and I haven't looked at that as my thing.
I haven't looked at it either. My understanding is that we haven't converted to email yet. We're still saying new applications come
Right.
in hard copy.
Yeah.
And what is it that the abutters get?
yeah, that's a good question. What do
We upload the plans on the website, but they get notification as a butters.
And
whenever
they-
we do a public hearing.
And they get pointed to the website?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, but the other thing I was just asking is, all I see is this is what we're gonna do, and I see parking spaces in the front, and apparently they took something else away in order to get the same
So,
lot coverage.
Do you have a hard copy of this?
I do not. Not the new
That's-
one, no.
But that's what we want, I think.
That's, the old one I also
that's what's
found that
required.
same
Yeah.
problem.
so so what you received digitally today, they were addressing staff's comments because we thoroughly reviewed the plans and determined there was an existing conditions missing from the application, and there's a
Yeah,
lot of other
Well, it's
things.
still missing.
In the one digitally I did see, there
Yes,
was.
there's no sign of the existing conditions
Uh,
in that PDF that I just downloaded.
So they were addressing those comments, that's what they were trying to do.
Yes, they were trying to, but they
Yeah.
missed, if they had that existing conditions comment, it ain't there.
Is there any other feedback that you have, though, from reviewing the?
I didn't really review.
No, not the new one, the old one that was mailed to you. Because if there was things that you wanted or you saw that needed to be changed, now's the time to give that feedback.
Well, not really. We got a revised proposal, right? Revised application, so that's the one we want to start with before we spend much time on
Yeah.
this, I think. I mean, that's the issue. Hard copies of the revised proposal, including the existing conditions and then the change.
So I think the answer to Galen's question is no, we don't have any feedback on that.
No, not yet, no.
We had any
No.
feedback.
Okay.
Right.
When I looked at the changes, they were noteworthy.
Substantial.
And there's also a question in the email string about the trees that were removed. I don't know if we ever got any documentation on those. So that would be helpful.
So
Okay.
trees that were removed in the original
In the
application.
shoreland zone, and they needed
Currently, not
documentation.
trees that are gonna be removed this time.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, trees that,
Have been removed since we approved it
right,
the last time.
They would have needed a permit to do that in the shoreland zone.
Yes.
Did they have permits then?
No, they know that they need to replace those trees. They've been in discussion with code.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
okay.
okay.
And even though there had been an approval at some point in time, the time has lapsed, so it's no longer pre-approved. It's not a change to a previous approval.
So, anyway, we'll see you on the 15th.
I think I'm clear on what I need to.
Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah,
Terrific.
As long as you're clear, that's good.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along, we have 240, 302, 438 Kings Highway, KW Architects.
Hi, I'm Christy Kenny from KW Architects. I'm here with the owner, Maura Perrier. We are presenting for a public hearing the project to add a two-car garage to this site. Our building lot coverage will not exceed 20%, and we are swapping other impervious to maintain the existing impervious, so there's no additional impervious on site. Our plan, I've added to the latest plan, notes that Galen had asked for. I have added the floodplain map reference to the survey. I have added note 4 for main erosion control sediment practices. We have fixed a graphic scale, which the plan was at 1 to 20, but the graphic scale said 1 to 30, so that's been fixed. I have had water, sewer, and electrical supply lines added to the survey. And I've added a note that all exterior light fixtures shall meet Kennebunkport lighting requirements for full cutoff fixtures. Those notes were added to the plans, but I still need to add a signature block, so I'll be sending in to Galen a full revised sheet for signatures after the public hearing.
And you did receive your DEP permit by rule.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, and on your list of comments that we just got here a few days ago, says, please grant a waiver to allow site plan to be 1 to 30 rather than 1 to 20?
Yeah, I misunderstood Galen's comment. It is 1 to 20, but I had a 1 to 30 graphic scale
Oh, it was
on
a
it,
typo.
Yep.
so I
So,
fixed
so
it.
no waivers
No,
needed.
no waivers
You're
needed.
good.
That's
I
good.
think the only waiver was for site topography,
Yes,
which
the contours.
contours, yeah.
Right,
They didn't put that on there.
pretty flat, eh? Okay, anyway.
Yes, it is flat, I was out at.
Yeah.
So, Mike, do you have any comments? Does this help, this set of changes that came in?
So, the reason it's here, we're reviewing it is because it's shoreland, right? But it
Yes.
otherwise is conforming,
Yes.
right? Because I was trying to think, I didn't see anything that triggered non-conforming, when I went out there and looked at it.
Right.
And we agreed that it's not an accessory apartment, it's just additional living space above,
That's
because it
correct.
doesn't have a kitchen.
No kitchen.
Now, would that be something that we would document in the finding of facts?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that it's definitely not that,
Yep.
that's what I thought, okay.
We are more than happy to have that documented in the findings of facts.
Permit reviewed, waiver. And so there's, because it's not non-conforming, there's no increase of volume or footprint or anything like that. As long as it remains within the required footprint for the garage expansion, which it does. Right? Okay. No, I think those were the only ones I wanted to confirm going through.
Anyone else have comments on this one from?
All the setbacks are conforming?
Yep. It's a pretty big lot. It's unusual down there.
Well, it
Okay.
goes way out into the marsh,
Yeah.
is the thing, yeah,
Okay.
shoreland, marsh, whatever the technical term is.
Nope, no, okay. So in that case, I will open the public hearing. And if there are any public that would like to talk to this one. No, any hands raised?
No hands raised.
No hands raised and no public hearing here. I'm going to declare the public hearing complete, over.
Okay.
So, can I hear a motion on this?
Move to approve the application as complete.
I'll second it.
Okay,
No, you want to approve the application.
I'm
Yes.
sorry,
Approve the
approving the
application.
application, I'm sorry, move to
What he
approve
said.
the application.
that's what it said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, so I move to approve the application.
Yes, I second that.
I approve it.
okay. So,
Approved.
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 Approve.
And Mike, you're gonna take care of,
I'll have finding of
FOF
facts
next
for
time.
the 15th,
for the 15th.
And I'll bring in sheets with signature
the
blocks. that
signature.
can
We
be
need
signed.
2, correct? Yeah.
I'll probably bring in 3, one
Do
for
we
the
need
owner.
signature buffs in this?
Yep.
We do?
Yeah.
I thought we just needed them for subdivision.
We usually only do
You
them for
don't?
subdivision.
I might be
That's what I thought.
getting confused then. If you don't need it, signatures, then that's fine.
No signature.
I've never, we've only
That's why
signed,
I asked, I emailed Galen the same question, 'cause-
Yeah.
and then
we've
do I
only
need to
signed,
register it?
That's
with
all
the
you do?
registry?
subdivisions
Just subdivision.
Okay.
Subdivisions.
Would you like to subdivide?
and
No.
FOFs.
Okay, Prescott had both, so that's why I'm maybe getting them confused.
Okay.
All right. So we don't
So
need
just,
those.
do I need to register anything with the registry of deeds for
After
this?
the
Oh, yeah.
finding of facts.
Just the finding.
Finding of facts, you take that to the registry of deeds.
Okay, they want a wet signature on it. I got their requirements today,
Yeah, we-
so
yeah,
just,
We usually sign 2 copies
Of the
here.
findings, yes.
okay, sounds good.
And we'll have those ready for you on the 15th.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. Well, this is going a lot faster than it looked when I
Oh, don't jinx it.
when I looked at it. Okay, this brings us to 2404, I wrote through it, 01, I guess.
Yes.
670 Kings Highway, and now we're gonna get
No, we're back to where I thought we were.
Werner actually presenting this for Werner. Introduce yourself.
Good evening, Board. For the record, I'm Warner Gilliam, representative of Walsh Engineering, here on behalf of the property owner for 670 Kings Highway, Brian Lucier, who's here. I'm also here with Eric Peterson and Bill Walsh as well. So I know you, last time you got to meet Norm. You probably thought I was going to be here, so we thought we'd switch it up, and now you thought Norm was going to be here, so I decided to be here.
It won't work. You can't confuse us.
We're already confused.
That's right. Just a little bit of an introduction regarding this project and, why this is here. So this project comes to you because we have a, we have a, number of nonconformities here. So we have a nonconforming lot that's located in the Goose Rock zone. It is, we have a structure that is non-conforming due to setback, although only small portions of it. And then as well as, the property is also non-conforming due to lot coverage. So it exceeds, the zoning requirement of 20%. And so, the request for this project is to remove and reconstruct the structure. As per the application, our proposal also does do some modification to the portions that are non-conforming due to setback. But overall, the project brings some of those setback items, renders them somewhat more conforming, as well as, brings some of the lot coverage down to make that also more conforming. It also, this proposal also will bring, the new house, will have a conforming foundation looking ahead towards, proposed flood maps, so we're meeting those elevations, meeting design criteria. Although, the portion of the property that is in the floodplain is actually to the rear, so we're fortunate in that sense that this, this property is in, I would say, a little bit of a sweet spot. We did have some foundation requirements that we had to meet due to Maine DEP sand dune standards. So if you look at the foundation plan, some of you may have wondered, all right, why do we have a portion of the foundation, that is, somewhat of a pier configuration, and then part of it is not, and that's due to the front portion, of the reconstruction being in a separate erosion hazard area. So we've applied for and received the DEP's permit by rule for this project, and so that has been approved. So we have a PowerPoint presentation, I think, that Norm presented last week, so if we can hit the next slide, please. So here, this just gives you, gives you a visual of the existing house and the existing conditions that we have there. Next slide, please. And here's our survey plan that was done. So we have, a number of things. The base survey was done. Lower Village survey provided us with the base data for this property, and then we came along performing the civil work for this project. Next slide, please. We have provided you with building elevations for the proposed home. These are drawings that Eric Peterson has drawn, and he's here to answer any questions regarding those plans. Next slide, please. And this gives you an overlay view of existing versus proposed foundation layout. Next slide, please. And here we've given you a side view that shows how we arrived at our building elevations. As you can see, we'll incorporate into here what the dune requirement foundation elevations are, and then how that relates to information that was passed on for house design for the max building elevation. Next slide, please. So we provide you also with an existing conditions plan and a proposed conditions plan, so you can see where we documented our existing lot coverage and then what the proposed conditions will be. Next slide, please. And likewise for the portions of the home that are non-conforming due to setback, Eric performed some volumetric calcs so that you can see how the new house compares to the old house in terms of what happens within those setback areas. Next slide, please. And same thing here. Next slide. And then we also provided to you, the volumetric calcs for those portions of the house that are within the property line setbacks. Next slide, please.
That's the last slide.
Oh, perfect. All right, thank you. So, as I said, ultimately, we believe this represents, this is again, relocate, to a greatest practical extent where we've kept, the volume and square footage of the house, are the expansions that are occurring, primarily where we have expansions are within the building envelope area, and the portions that are outside of the building envelope, you'll see. Actually, to some degree, are reduced in volume and area with just some slight reallocation in one of those areas. But I'll let Eric speak to that part of his design. So available if the board has any questions. I think we've addressed all of the questions that were brought up. I understand we needed to fix a coverage number on the application, which we did. We also added to the plan, we did not have the existing sewer service identified on the plan, which we have added that. And also we provided an updated, civil sheet where we identified, I think, a little bit clearer what the proposed setbacks are going to be, and I trust the board received a copy of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was roughly 7 days ago, so perfect.
So, happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Okay, why don't we start with Ed, since you had the most questions the last time.
Let me say thanks, Werner, up front for the additional information that was requested. Very clear. I had one small question about the setbacks. I was the one being nitpicking about the before and after. And I thought it was very clear, except on looking at the house, the left side setback. On the original C11 drawing, it says that the side setback is 8.35 feet. And on the new one, it looks like, if I am reading it correctly, it looks like it's a matter of an inch or so out to the edge of that, is that a deck?
Correct, yes.
So I'm guessing that this is the correct one that you're looking at here, and that you just may have a typo on the C11 that at some point you want to pick up. Right, right, okay, so. Yes, that's right, so just for the record, and I'll use this information for the findings. And as you say, they're all, in every case, the setback is no greater than, the nonconformity is no greater than it was, and in most cases has, I think in every case, has been at least slightly reduced.
Yeah,
So-
that's
so-
correct.
So thank you for that. I had a question about the shoreland zone setback, if you will. I wasn't clear where the start of the shoreland zone high water mark isn't marked on your, I'm taking it you're far enough away from that so that you're not within the 75 feet setback from the,
Yeah,
high
that's
water mark.
correct. What you actually see on the plan is just the extent of the actual shoreland zone,
right,
which is 250 feet.
right.
So the 75 feet, doesn't show up on our plan because we're well beyond 75 feet in terms of the setback. Yeah.
You mentioned that there's wetlands in behind the house, correct?
There is some wet to the back on the adjacent property.
Is there a setback from that the house is in jeopardy of?
No, so one, there's no impact, there's no impact to any wetlands, but those are,
I understood that.
those wetlands there as they're freshwater forested, so that's all, an inland area there, and as such, that does not have any setback to that.
Just want to clarify, and then I think there's one last, just for my own curiosity. On the chart, I think it's on the one you sent today, there's a line that's of demarcation that's annotated with an SF indication. It goes across the back, and I didn't see that in the key.
Silt fence.
What kind?
Silt fence.
Oh, for erosion control. Oh, I see, so you've added that. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. Got anything?
I assume the landscaping is staying the same, existing landscaping? Pretty much, unless you're doing something around the house when you're, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, perimeter plantings, things of that nature, yeah.
okay. That's all. I don't have any.
All set. Thank you.
So I just had one question on elevation. So I appreciate your drawing C 2.2 that shows the minimum elevation of the lowest structure member is 16 feet. But and in your presentation you showed the finished elevation is 17. Okay, I mean that fits. So is 1 foot enough to get all of your structural members that you need?
Yeah, I mean, that's we're making, I think on that piece there, we're making a typical assumption in terms of, what the depth of, framing material is going to be. Should that be adjusted once the structurals, are developed, they'll need to adhere to those elevations.
So the bottom elevation, or the elevation of the bottom member is no higher than, no lower than 16 feet, basically.
That's based on the plan.
And that's NAVD 88
Correct.
reference?
Yep. Yeah, everything's in 88.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all, thank you.
Can I follow on that? Did I understand you to say that if in fact it turns out when they put down the structural members, they are higher
Well, that's okay.
by a few inches than,
Can't be any lower, yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
then
That's
the
okay.
the height of the overall structure is going to be no higher than 30 feet.
Well, that's the
Period.
constraint, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, we
So,
have a
from-
top
from the
we have a top
elevation.
constraint, and then we have essentially we have a framing member constraint. So
Yeah.
we're at this stage have made some assumptions in terms of typical framing members.
Yeah.
Arguably that we could wind up with with some narrower framing members there, depending on what the structural design winds up being.
Okay.
But at this stage, at the planning stage here, we've made some assumptions based on typical.
Okay, all right.
I'm Eric Peterson, just adding a comment. You don't have to step away,
No.
but the only reason the height of the top of the pier and bottom of framing is 16 is based on the DEP's requirement that that be 3 feet above the highest adjacent grade at where it touches the ground.
And that's for the sand dune,
Exactly.
issue.
That's the layer that makes it as high as it is.
okay,
Because it would be lower to meet the proposed flood elevation.
right, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And just to be clear, that, you know, that comes into play because of the erosion hazard line, you know, that comes through there.
Yeah.
If the erosion hazard line wasn't there and this was just a typical back dune, you wouldn't have that requirement.
Okay, fascinating, wow.
Correct. Yep, right. That's why, that's why we have basement on the back and only, you know, we have the piers on the front.
I got you, okay, thank you.
Okay, George? Mike?
Nope.
Can I make one more comment?
Yeah, oh, please.
I just want to say thank you for putting the screen on the picture window, and please keep those screens on. Thank you.
Okay. So,
So where are we on this?
I guess it's time to open up the
Public
public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, so once again, we'll open up a public hearing on this application, and would you like to please come to the?
Sure. I'll be first. Maybe the only, but I'll be the first. So thank you for the opportunity to
Identify
speak with you.
yourself, please.
Yes, my name is Arthur LeMay. This is my wife, Mary Ellen. We're the owners of 664 Kings Highway. That's the adjacent property on the left side of the building as you looked at it, or the western border. We bought that property back in 2000, so we've been around for 24 years. And it's that side of the property that we'd like to just talk to you about, share our concerns. First, we feel pretty fortunate that we were able to buy our property in 2000. Not sure we could afford it today. It's a great town. It is a great area at Goose Rocks, and quite a change from Westbrook, Maine, where I was born and raised. We are also very delighted that the structure next door is finally being demolished and replaced with a beautiful building. As far as we're concerned, it's another Eric Peterson success. Enlarging livable space on a tiny lot with a beautiful design. That all said, we're very, very concerned about the building structure that is within the setback on the west side. We only learned about this detail a few days before the last planning board meeting. When we were notified, we checked online, and sure enough, the application and all the drawings are available for those of us that received that notice. I also want to say that we appreciate you asking for the before and after, because when I noticed on the before and after distances from borders, that deck is currently 0.88 away from the border, and it's being moved several inches to 0.94 feet. So it's 0.88 feet, if I am reading it correctly, right? And it's being moved several inches. More importantly, that I have to say is that most importantly and most troubling to us is that this deck is being enlarged. I am not a zoning expert, and as I tried to review them, I got more confused. So I deferred to all of you as to what is exactly appropriate with zoning, but I have to tell you from our perspective as a next-door neighbor, we're extraordinarily concerned, and I'm going to explain a little bit why. It's being enlarged and it's being repurposed. I know that the decks and stairs are included in one calculation, but from our perspective, that deck is being enlarged, and the purpose of that deck is being changed. It's the change in use that's not been mentioned anywhere, so that's why we appreciate being here to share that with you. It's that change in use that we think is important. We're going to detail a little bit about our perspective on the historic use of that space. The town requirement, the purposes, the uses of the structures that we are aware of, we believe will have an adverse impact on our property and on us. As a matter of background, when we moved in 2000, the owner of that property at 670, Mr. McCluskey, who owned the property for a long time, let me just say it was many decades, he apologized to us for the deck. He actually said, I know this is right next door to you, but I want you to know that I was required by the town to put in a deck with a staircase to the backyard because I wanted to put a spiral staircase indoors, and there needed to be an emergency egress or access. So he said, I have no intention to use that deck, and I consider it a fire escape. I built it, and that's the deal. We will not be on a deck. Now, in the 24 years we've been there, we've never had a complaint. We've never seen anybody on that deck. And even though it's literally 15 feet and 0.88 from our house, we've never witnessed anybody ever using that deck. As a result, that deck in its use and its requirement for the town was tolerable to us. Our privacy was never compromised, and in fact, when we finished the second level of our house, we bought an unfinished second floor, a cape with an unfinished second floor. When we finished off the second floor, we even put our main bedroom on the face siding that deck because this was not an issue. We had no concerns, and probably naively on our part, we thought that that deck would never, ever be replaced and repurposed, being so close to the border. Sorry, I'm a little long, but this is important. Mm-hmm. We've watched a lot of renovation projects down at Goose Rocks Beach, and it has appeared to us as though compliance with setbacks has always been a requirement. Now, I understand it's probably not always a requirement, but it has seemed to be. A great example is the renovation across the street for us. I don't know the number, but that was a project that removed an existing building and built a new facility honoring all the setbacks. And I can point to others, and you could probably point to many that didn't comply with setbacks, but we had been, I guess, pretty naive that this could even happen to us. What's important that we want to share with you is that the existing structures, the uses, the sizes have been tolerable for a number of reasons. The existing deck faces our primary bedroom, and it actually overlooks our front porch, which is where we spend a lot of time, facing the ocean, watching people go by, talking with neighbors. We spend a lot of time on that front deck. This is this deck, this fire escape, actually looks down at our front porch, basically 16 feet away. But it was never used, so no harm, no foul. The planned deck is no longer required as a fire escape because there are indoor stairs, normal stairs indoors. And frankly, I don't think that deck can even serve as a fire escape any longer in the plan because there's a spiral staircase at the end of the deck to access the ground level. So that is not a deck that's being reused or a fire escape that's being reused for the same purpose. There is definitely a change in use on that deck. Also, since the deck isn't a fire escape, enlarging it from what I see as 10 by 8, 80 square feet, to what I can guesstimate as around 150 square feet, and its placement adjacent to the kitchen, the dining area, the great room, suggests that there is very likely to be a change from fire escape to frequently used outdoor living space. Again, that's 16 feet from our property, our buildings. The occupants of the enlarged deck will be that close to our bedroom, our outdoor living area, and looking down on our front porch will be sort of like a balcony in a theater. It's elevated 10 feet looking down 16 feet towards us sitting on our porch. The applicants may not have the intention to use that deck for socializing and partying through the night and all that. This is not about our new neighbors. This is about what future owners, potential renters, can do in the future. And it's not only about us, but future owners of our property will feel the impact of this specific change. So this is the most troublesome concern of all. We think it will have the most significant impact on our privacy. We've been there for 24 years and have never had this issue. And frankly, I think it could have an impact on the value of our property. So our question, not seeking an answer here from you, but is this really necessary? Is there not an alternative, more reasonable alternative than putting a deck that close to our property? We're respectfully suggesting, excuse me, I forgot a section. So that's speaking about the deck. I want to talk about the ground level, because in this plan, the existing space is being changed to a storage area. And let me explain why at the ground level, from an existing conditions point of view, never was a bother to us, because that was a brick walkway that gave access from the front of the lot to the back of the lot. Mr. McCluskey used to keep his tool shed in the back of the house, and he was always going back and forth from his flower garden in front to the back. And you know, traffic from the residents would go through that deck. We never had any issues with privacy, because there are 10-foot or 8 to 10-foot vegetation that's shared. I don't even know what the plantings are, but they're plants 10 feet high that not are dense, but are dense enough that block the visual movement and the noise that could potentially arise. I mean, we've not had a problem, but that vegetation is also very important. We hope that, we respectfully request that the plantings that are there be allowed to remain or be replaced with other comparable plantings. I'm not sure that is clear in the plans.
And those are the ones between the garage and the property line? Are those the ones you're talking about?
Between the deck.
Between the deck and the property.
And the property line, yeah. In particular, there's a beautiful rhododendron that must be, I don't know how old, that is towards the front of the house, that is sort of on our property and over there on their property. I mean, it's those plants that have shielded and provided the privacy. So the other point about that storage shed is, I think, if I read it correctly, 0.94 feet from our property line. That's not enough space along that border to retain the existing vegetation, or to use the storage door that's placed on the wall facing our house. I don't know if that was a design error, but I don't see any way that somebody could go within a foot to open the door and access the storage unit. Or even walk around the house. On that side of the house, there is no way to walk without stepping onto our property. Seems to me to be a safety issue, but I don't know. Again, that's for all of you to judge. And the other question is, isn't there some form of limitation on the size of a storage unit that's under a deck or an enclosed space under a deck? It's not clear to me whether the storage unit is the full size under the total enlarged deck or whether it's actually smaller. I mean, those are the specifics that we wanted to raise to your attention. We've shared what the most important element is, and it's about protecting our privacy. We believe our right to privacy is extremely important, as we trust most people are. I'm sure the neighbors, the future neighbors, will feel the same way. In summary, we're here to share the historic uses and conditions of the existing structure and to express our very serious concerns about the planned structures. We respectfully request that the board delay any decision on this application this evening and instead encourage the applicants to explore reasonable modifications to the plan. We do believe that it is highly likely that the applicants aren't even aware of the historical issues or the privacy issues, and or even the impact that we feel this plan has on us. In the spirit of being good neighbors, we would have preferred to have this discussion privately with them. And I just want to say for the record, we feel awkward needing to present this and do these communications through a board and a public hearing. But so be it, we needed to make sure that our concerns were heard and the history was at least put on the record. I've got copies of my comments and a table that outlines the existing and the planned and what our concerns are of each of those elements. And I can leave a copy of that. We thank you for hearing this and your consideration to our concerns. Did I miss anything? Good, I hope I read it all. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Is there anyone online?
Yeah, why don't you?
You need the
Check here,
microphone.
here's the mic.
Is there anyone on?
All the people we have.
Is there anyone still online for the public hearing? Any hands raised?
Well, I think
So can we go back to the PowerPoint, please? We had where we showed there, correct, right there, pre-development and post-development areas. So so our existing conditions plan, so this was information that was derived from, a survey that was done by Lower Village Survey. And so you can see, you can see on, to the left, the area that's in blue, where we identify the existing deck that's currently there. And as you can see, what we have on the right shows the proposed deck. So there is some reconfiguration, of some of that square footage, but that reconfiguration, really what that does is that is largely due to the change of the staircase. So regarding the use of the space doesn't change. The deck is currently a deck, and the deck will continue to be a deck. So there's no change of use. And just in regard to, the change of use, so uses are, as, from a zoning perspective, the property is a single-family home, the square footage that's associated with it is single-family home square footage. Change of use generally, when we're talking about change of use, we're talking about land use changes. We're talking about if we're changing from, if it were from a single family to some other type of use. The ordinance does not necessarily get into, especially with a single family, whether it's an outdoor space. It's single family home use space. Regarding the area beneath, if we can go to the architecturals, please. So more towards the end. The building elevation, the one that shows the picture of the front of the house.
It's in the beginning.
Yeah. So what you're looking at here, the area that's underneath the deck, what we're showing here is we're showing lattice work. That's the intent of the covering that's there underneath there. So it's our belief that that a lattice, that this lattice is decorative, in nature here. And so this is not a fully enclosed. This is an architectural feature. Certainly, items can be placed under the deck. Items could be placed under the deck regardless of whether or not there was lattice or slats, surrounding that. In terms of the access, the access area could be relocated to the back, to get underneath there. So.
Tag team.
If I could clarify something for you, I think in your reading, use, the word use, as Werner has indicated, indicates a major change in use, like from a single family to a two-family or three-family, or completely to a commercial use or something like that. It is not the use within a residential, whether you use it a room as storage, or whether you use it as a deck, or whether you use it for a bedroom. It doesn't matter. The use does not apply there. And no matter what somebody told you at one time, the plans basically, as they're listed, is zoning for a single-family house. And however, that deck was planned for whatever purpose that the owner had, that purpose can be changed without changing the use as a residential use. So, whether it was used as a fire escape or whether it was never used as a deck, it doesn't apply here. Does that clarify?
You know the zoning ordinance much better than I do.
Right.
So I defer to that. And I guess I should have qualified. We're not here to argue the ordinance.
Okay.
Honestly.
If you're going to make a
If you're
comment,
gonna-
you
if you're
have
gonna
to come
speak,
up to the front.
Go get the mic.
So,
I'll wait.
okay,
If that's okay.
okay. I just want to make sure that you understand that. Okay.
So Eric, you wanted to?
I would just offer that we could move the access door to the storage, that latticed area underneath, to the front or the back, or both, if it helps. We can take it off the side. We'd shown it on the side elevation, but the homeowner is willing to put that either on the front or the back or both. So if you turn around right behind you, there's a picture of the front of the house.
Right.
That's a really wide scale lattice on the area down below, just to make it look tidy. But where that tall bush is shown could be an access door on the front or on the back or both.
And then where you currently have the door, you just lattice all that,
Correct.
right? So
So that could
west
essentially
side
stay
or the side-
landscaped.
Yeah, the side facing them would have lattice in it, so they wouldn't see people or the stuff.
Well, the idea with putting the lattice there was so that nobody would have to look at somebody else's,
Yeah.
beach chairs and lawnmower and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Eric, I'm not clear. Is there a doorway from the garage into that storage area?
No,
Okay.
there's
that's
a window.
Line. Thanks.
Yes, okay, I mean, given how close it is to the side, it would be, seem to be better to be in the front or back.
Yep,
Yeah.
which is fine with us.
Compromise.
Or both, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or both,
Where you show the railing on the balcony,
Mm-hmm.
is that, are those slats of wood, is that
It's cable.
cable? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's very open.
Are there any other questions on the house portion of the application?
House portion.
The house portion, well, Werner's speaking to sort of the land use and site plan aspect of it, and I'm the house guy, so.
House
So
plan.
this is a continuation of the theme of keep bringing in different guys just to.
I've been
just
here
to
the
keep
whole,
us on our toes.
you're seeing my face every
What
week.
part was Norm doing? I mean, it was.
So there was a issue raised about the plants, the rhododendrons and that. I know Warner had said things would be kept. Are those the external property line ones that were referenced, or we got two different types of plants here?
No, so as you can see, just for visual purposes, there's some typical foundation plantings that are
Yeah.
shown here.
Against the
So
house.
this doesn't have a doesn't have a landscape plan to
Right.
it per se. But I would suggest that that as neighbors that they could come to an arrangement regarding a preferable preferable landscaping. Arguably, if anything that currently crosses a property line is something that arguably needs to be maintained by both. But for our purposes, for the reconstruction of the home, our relocation doesn't necessarily address a landscape feature.
I guess my point was you were talking about the ones along the property line being retained. For most, the ones around the building structure itself, you were gonna, they gotta go, right? But the other ones sound like they're mature and providing some sort of barrier protection currently between the thing. Are those ones gonna remain undisturbed when you rebuild it? Or are you gonna have to take all that out and plant something new?
So that was not something that so we didn't testify to the landscaping
Right.
piece of that. From a practical perspective, as you can imagine, this is a very tight lot,
Yep.
right? And so arguably, what in property owner can only maintain and remove what is on their property, right? Anything beyond the property line, has to be dealt with. An agreement has to be made with the neighbors. So, it's the whole, what happens if I've got a tree and the branches hang over the line, right? I can maintain what hangs over my, onto my property. The remaining piece is the responsibility of the neighbor. And the same thing is true here. So, this is going to be a very tight lot, and property lines are going to have to be respected in terms of the reconstruction piece of it.
It,
So the width of the new deck is the same as the old deck?
A little later.
Yeah, we're a little lighter on there by less than inches. Square footage is the same.
but it doesn't come any closer to the property.
That's correct. Yes, does
Okay.
not come any closer to the property line.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard the abutter say that it went from 80 square feet to about 120, so I'm confused.
That's
8 by 12, the deck is 8 by 12.
And that's not changing? Okay.
correct. 96 square feet.
And then it's got in addition, a platform for the first level of stairs. Yeah, so,
We went to a spiral stair because
oh, interesting.
the stair that's now there runs straight out, but because we're raising the height of the building,
Yeah.
it just had nowhere to go. So it would have run off the property and down the hill. So that's why we went with a spiral stair, because it was more compact
Understood.
and gets us down quicker.
What are you thinking about in terms of, access when you're doing the construction, the demolition and the construction to this area?
Welcome to Goose Rocks Beach.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, it's a challenge. Well, that's why, off-season construction helps, because people can park in front and the town doesn't get as excited about people parking.
But here
on
you've
the
got a
street.
case where you're literally within inches of the abutter's, property. Will you have to bring
Year-round.
will you have to bring your equipment in
Well,
on?
thankfully, it's digging 2 porch posts and not a foundation right there.
Ah,
That's a big difference. If this house were a foot off the property line, that's an issue, because how do you logistically even do that, right?
so in listening to the information about, the history here, it seems that at some point in time, this deck wasn't there, and then it got built, all in grandfathered years.
Long before I knew anything about it.
Before the ordinance
But-
was in effect.
Yeah, the one thing that they had before, if you recall looking at the before picture, the brick walkway around it went under the deck for a period, and then,
Right.
so that it didn't encounter this,
Right, and so I wanted
difficult.
to ask about that. Did that then allow for shrubs of some sort to be on the property line?
Can I
Where
ask a
now-
question?
Where now you're seeing lattice work
Are
on that.
the shrubs that separate these two properties, do you think the root of the trunk of those shrubs is on your property? It's a combination?
Because that space underneath is open, and it does allow for plants, frankly, to be grown probably within the footprint of the deck. Mr. McCluskey actually had a fence that went.
Could you come up to the mic, please, when you, or have Eric pass it to you at least?
Whose plants are they?
So, well, but
I think it's a combination.
as you answer that, are those plants underneath the deck? Like, do they
Yes.
hit the deck?
They're very close to the deck.
All right, so,
Pretty overgrown.
so they essentially will provide a natural screening
That's exactly our point on the ground level, yes.
that's going to be removed, going to have to be removed in order to do this.
Well, as
that's
Eric
what
said, this
we're
is not
hearing.
foundation, this is just,
No,
Could you show the photograph of the front of the house as it is again? It may show in there.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, I was there the other day.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, please. I think it's slide number 1.
There we go, back up.
There we go.
Yeah, you can,
we don't see the left side.
but you can see the beginning of the rhododendron, and that line of plantings does go directly under the deck.
Mind if I borrow this? Thank you.
But the lattice work that we just talked about, Eric,
Yeah.
that would, if you move the entrance to the front or back, and you latticed in the under deck thing there, that would go where those shrubs are now, because you
I
only
don't know,
got,
I don't know that.
well, you only
Because
got
I-
9 inches, it's, the
I
plants
can't
are
tell you
wider
where
than-
the shrubs are. I don't know that the shrubs are under the deck or,
Okay, if I believe the abutter that they are under the deck, then that, what I'm saying is true, but you would have to verify, obviously. What I'm getting at is we have a situation where the shrubs are being removed.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, I think so, if they're,
No, if the shrubs are outside the deck, the trunks are outside the deck, they may be growing, the branches may be growing in a bit, but they're not going to grow very far in because of the shadowing. If you have the trunks outside of the deck, I mean, you could easily prune and put lattice in there if you wanted
can I
to.
just, the reason I'm struggling with that, with thinking of it that way, is that there's only 9 inches from where that lattice would go to the property line. That's not enough to plant a hosta, let alone a shrub. I mean, it's,
Oh, yeah, there are shrubs that are very thin, hollies and things like that grow very tall and are very thin and just grow like that.
9 inches.
No,
That's tight.
I disagree.
It's a 9-inch lot.
I'll just reiterate that, what can be trimmed is essentially what is along the property line,
Sure,
Right.
sure.
right?
And if
Right.
it kills them, it kills them.
We're able to trim, along the length of the property line,
Sure.
unless there's, unless
Right.
there's a mutual agreement,
Right.
amongst neighbors, regarding,
No, of course.
a bush that straddles the property line.
So the only question comes back to, is this a change in use in a non-conforming area of the home? I know we say we can't make this area more non-conforming. And clearly in terms of impervious area, you're not. But in terms of to the detriment of the neighbor, perhaps we are. And I think that's where we need to at least think about, I for one want to go back and reread that section of the ordinance in terms of changes to non-conforming areas that's in our land use ordinance. I know I've looked at it before, but I don't have it committed to memory, and it seems to me that that's what we're being asked to consider here.
I think you might be confusing the non-conforming change of use, which is like from residential to commercial to a two-family or something like that, with basically non-conforming construction, which this is, and under 1010, when you go through all those, requirements and so forth, is it detrimental to the neighbors and so forth? It would come under that, but it's not a change in use.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay,
I do.
right. A
And
non-conforming.
the other,
Absolutely.
the
And
other
so
element-
the use of the word, the use of the word use is,
It-
is a bit distracting here.
And
What I'm saying here is that the change to a non-conforming structure needs to be examined to see that the change does not make it more non-conforming in terms of its impact on the neighbors. And where an elevated deck with a pass underneath it and a border of shrubs had a certain effect on the neighbors, this is a different structure. And I'm not saying, I might not come back and say, look, I'm sorry, guys, I reread the ordinance, and that's just the way it is. This seems like it's something that's at least worth rereading that section and saying, isn't this really within the intent of the structure that says you're outside the zone that you're normally allowed to build in, right? And I know you did it before the ordinance was passed and all of that, but really, if this was built today, you wouldn't be allowed to put anything there. You wouldn't be allowed to put the structure that's there. And now we're saying, well, I'd like to effectively stop that passage underneath. I'd like to jeopardize the border of shrubs that's in between the two properties. And that would be all right if you had a neighbor maybe that said, yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. But that's not what we have here. So it seems like it's worth looking closely at, and not just me glibly saying, yeah, it's not officially a use by definition of the word use. I don't want to stop there. I want to say this is a change to a nonconformance. I want to make sure that the proposed change isn't worse than what we have now.
I'm not convinced it is.
I'm not convinced it is either, but
If
I'm
they-
convinced
if
I want to
they-
look at it.
If there were no deck there and they tore it down and built a house and put a deck there, well, then there'd be a new thing. There hadn't been a deck there before.
Right.
There is a deck there.
Right, now we're going to close underneath it.
Well, not changing really what's underneath it. What we're doing is putting lattice work around it.
If someone
Yeah,
decided.
you are changing it. You're tearing up the sidewalk that's under it now. and
What
you-
if someone kept this house and they decided to put some lattice work up in front of that, just to hide it a little bit? They could probably work with the code enforcement and do that, and if no one had ever used that deck, and they thought, wow, this is dandy, we've got a deck, and they decided to go out and start using that deck, They wouldn't have altered anything
Oh,
with the existing structure.
I agree, I don't, although I have some sympathy for your change in privacy, I don't have anything that makes me think that these guys wouldn't be allowed to use the deck. It's the closing in and the jeopardizing of the privacy screen, the natural shrubs, that I think is gonna impact it.
If I'm being honest, the reason we latticed in underneath was so it didn't look like that.
No, in the front. The front doesn't bother me.
On
It's
either side, on any side,
yeah.
just so it looks
tidy.
neater.
Yeah.
Ed, I would also offer, as we look at, I mean, and I think this picture is a good example here. So, one of the things that's also, changing in terms of impact here is that, this driveway is actually being pulled off of the property line, right? So where that car is currently located, is now going to be shifted over essentially, an entire, car width over.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself provides in a reduction of impact, to the abutting property.
I agree.
And one could also argue as well that, eliminating the path underneath it also to a certain extent, with walking back and forth
Yeah,
and
no
back and
traffic.
forth in that proximity, one could argue that that also reduces the impact.
Right, and I think the offer to make the access to the underdeck, the rear of the property, alleviates your concern about someone walking up along your property line next to your bedroom and going in the side door. That's gone. I think all we have left, in my mind, is the concern that the natural privacy screen is gone of the shrubs. And maybe, if you think about it, the lattice work, and maybe it's got some ivy on it or something like that, takes the place of that. I think that would be something you guys, might talk about.
But it won't change the fact that the deck might be used more.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I don't think you got an argument there.
I do think we have to think about what the nature is of currently on the site, and if they did not even enclose it, there's nothing to stop the property owner from putting storage underneath.
Right.
So what's the impact that you're proposing, Ed?
The damage and of the natural privacy screen that's there.
The loss of the plants.
Yeah. That's what I'm
And the question
struggling
is
with.
there with being 2 posts versus a foundation wall, the impact may be minimal. I don't know. I can't.
Well, that's right. Maybe if we looked at this and said, and even as we're talking about it, you're forcing me to think through this.
Yeah.
The lattice work, if in fact it was a privacy screen, how would that make you feel about this? Is that a better or is it a worse, or you have to think about it?
Well, I'd like to think about it, but I have to say, we're willing to seek any reasonable alternative, and we'd love to have a conversation with the applicants. We didn't feel it was our right to reach out to them directly since they hadn't with us.
I see.
But our concern sounds like more of a personal and neighborly privacy issue that is not within your scope to make a decision about. We're frankly outraged, and we think that there are options rather than putting the deck there. We'd love to have that conversation with them. And sounds like it's not one for.
I can tell you that Mr. Peterson has been before the board numerous times, and of course, you probably know, Mr. Gilliam has got a long history of working with landowners all around the town, and I think most of the people who have dealt with either one of them will speak favorably of that experience, and not to mention Mr. Walsh.
You can fully disclose.
Yeah, Eric did our renovation project 5, 6 years ago. And
how'd that go? How'd that go?
Well, he didn't quite find enough zoning variances for us, but.
Did he give in to the neighbors?
But
those
honestly,
abutters, or-
maybe we needed Werner to be working with us. Didn't know we could hire him. Look, we understand
can hear
that a resident wants to maximize living space views of the water, we get it. We did the same thing.
Of course.
And charged Eric with that. We're, I guess, through this public hearing, appealing to the applicants as much as we are asking you to find a zoning ordinance reason to deny the application.
I don't think we have a loophole here that
Yeah.
says you can't build that deck, and I don't think any amount of looking's
I
gonna
hear
do
you.
that.
And
I
so-
think what you have is you have something that says, look, we don't want, we know that we've got a setback issue here, we've lived with it for the 20-some-odd years we've been here. Please, in good conscience, you can't make this a worse situation
Yeah.
for us. What can we do?
Yeah.
And it seems like there's some room here to work.
We think there is, but it takes two to dance.
They're dancing.
And so,
Yeah.
our greatest fear is that this gets approved tonight, and we don't have an opportunity to have a conversation about potential modifications. It's not our place to come up with ideas. They've got a great architect to do that. And if they're willing to do it, we'd love to hear efforts to improve upon. Our greatest concern, I have to point out, is the deck at our bedroom level and overlooking our front porch. That's our greatest concern. Lattice work on the storage underneath that has ivy growing up is probably better than what's there.
Yeah, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, so I don't, I hate to make
No.
have you spend time on that issue when in fact it's the deck and the potential
the
noise
deck-
from that deck.
Is there. I mean, they're not changing,
You got a noise ordinance in town.
it's the same place.
Yeah, but it wasn't used before.
But it wasn't used before, that
Yeah.
we can't control.
Can't control that.
Well, you have discretion as to your judgment and how you view the use of the space.
What are you reading in our eyes
I don't
about the
know.
deck?
No, you're pretty clear.
Okay,
But I also read elements about not, on building structures not having detrimental effects
Sure.
on the peaceful, enjoyable living of the abutting property.
so you have a noise ordinance, I mean, a noise section in town that I think, people in Goose Rocks tend to live with. I don't think that's changing.
I think
better or
what you're
worse.
looking at is 1010. That's what you've been looking at. And there are, guidelines for decisions there. But those guidelines don't tell us that because, someone's changing a house, but they're keeping the same deck, that we can tell them, you can't keep the deck, or you can't use the deck. That's not within our power. Okay, if they were constructing a new deck that wasn't there before, that looked down in your bedroom, we could take that into consideration under 1010. But because the deck is already there, if they decide to have a party there, we have no control over that.
And the fact that the deck is there currently, but this property, this building is being totally demolished, it's still considered there.
It's
It's a
still
replacement.
considered there. Yeah, it's just replacement.
So again, this comes down to two neighbors
Being
trying
neighbors.
to.
Absolutely.
be
Neighbors conversing with each other, right?
Yeah. Can we take this offline, or?
Oh, well,
I don't think we need to.
We
air it
can-
over public TV.
We
I mean, we're in
can,
a
but
public hearing here, so
Okay.
I've got three things to think about. Brian Lucier, the homeowner, has said that A, we could try to keep that rhododendron intact as much as possible, trim it as necessary. B, he's offering a clever solution to move the porch posts in a couple feet so that the area that's enclosed by lattice is a little smaller, and you can cantilever the deck out and still be able to get around it on the main level. And also,
you lost your rebutter here, but
al-
this is good stuff.
and also on the long plane of the deck, the 12-foot long plane facing the LeMays, do something higher than a railing height as a privacy screen.
Which doesn't exist now, right?
It-
So
Just
there's really
railings, yeah.
An added protection.
Yeah,
I-
improvement.
I'm really lost at
where this is the same size in the same place,
Those are just neighborly offerings.
Yeah.
Right.
that's what it is.
Yes, so
Because this is, you know, you're due a lot of attention, but nothing's changed, so it's impossible, whoever the human beings are gonna be in the next 100 years, using that porch,
Yeah,
none of us
But,
can
but
say
what,
what's
the
gonna happen.
two things that Eric just said, really, I think are gonna help a lot on what you guys were talking about.
Arthur, I don't think you caught the first one.
Yeah,
The idea of moving as you look,
Yeah, you did.
so the area that's, quote, enclosed by lattice underneath would be smaller, and you'd be able to get around without stepping a foot on your property, which is important.
And
And
move the posts in farther from the plants, too.
And would allow
Yeah.
retaining the
that'll be better for the
shrubbery.
plants.
Right.
Trim back, though.
That's why I was asking
Well-
about the, what's that railing like? Because if you've got some screening on that long wall, no more than anyone wants to look into someone
Yeah.
else's.
Well, I guess it
bedroom.
goes both ways, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
Right, it's not-
who wants to
absolutely.
look into somebody else's house?
It's not the greatest view that far away.
Clearly, there's a view in the front, which is why we would keep the
Absolutely.
And
cable
to the
railing.
back.
Yep.
Well, if you made a suggestion on the application that it be loose enough, the application be loose enough that it could be more than a railing on the long side and higher, we could approve it that way. We could approve the application like
That's
that.
good.
Allow
neighborly.
for that flexibility if you want.
Warner?
Yeah, and, and certainly I don't think that changes, that modification doesn't change, the content of, of what's been presented to you all, and I think.
No, it's not changing square footage
Yep.
or conformity or anything like that.
Correct.
And I think that those, those types of, those types of elements could be addressed in your findings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm Mary Ellen LeMay. So, the details that we're working out and the conversations we'll have with the neighbors are, we look forward to that. I think from our perspective, from mine personally, I'm just surprised not at what the plans are trying to do, which is to maximize the space. And as Art said, we do the same thing. What is surprising to us is that this entire house and deck is being absolutely demolished, and that whole property is going to be cleared, and then you are putting something back into a completely non-conforming space within inches of our property line. That is what's really surprising to us. As we looked at that house for 24 years, it's not a nice house. It's not our house, but the saving grace was that whoever bought the house and reconstructed it, from all the experience and other construction we saw, like across the street from us, the whole house was demolished, and that new house was brought completely into appropriate setbacks, because that was the rule. And that's the rule that we had expected would happen here. But what's not happening here is everything's coming down, and the house itself is shrinking, but it is still staying right on our property line. So you can understand that's kind of our surprise. It's
Yeah.
from an ordinance or zoning perspective, that's what we just don't understand. So we would like to, hope that this most non-conforming side, there have been zero accommodations to try to get it even a couple of inches more conforming, whereas all the other three sides have met conforming. But this one, which is the most dramatically different, right on the property line, is being rebuilt as a new deck right there. So that's kind of where we're coming from. And so that's all I wanted to say.
Well, one, it isn't a rule that it has to be more non-conforming. It has to stay within the parameters that it is if it's non-conforming, or be less. But they cannot expand except within a certain amount. If it's never, as of, the date, as of 1970 or something like that, when the
No,
rules
there's
went
a
in.
1989 date, I think, in there.
1989, okay. On a non-conforming structure, you have the ability to expand to 30%. okay, if you can meet setbacks and things like that, and in volume as well. So they allowed for some expansion, the state allowed for some expansion. But if you want to demolish, what I understand today is that it's cheaper to demolish the house and rebuild it than it is to remodel it. I'm hearing that all over because of increased prices. If you want to rebuild the house on the same footprint and make it just as non-conforming, you can do that. And many people have done that. They're not pulling in. They do when they can, when it meets their purposes, but they don't have to. There's no rule there.
It's true.
And in this case, they're not doing the 30% or anything larger, it's just
They're-
replacing.
Well, they are doing the volume, but
The volume,
They're not-
but not the footprint.
not
The
the footprint.
footprint is staying exactly the same.
Actually,
Decreases in the areas of nonconformity.
Oh, okay. So they're decreasing nonconformity in terms of volume of the house.
I don't think it isn't non-conforming with respect to volume now. There's no volume non-conformance.
It's nonconforming in little slivers around the edges, and we're pulling it in.
It's non-conforming with respect to setback, and you're not making that worse.
Right.
You are increasing the volume in those areas from what it is today.
In the conforming area. Only in the conforming area.
I see. There's no, you're not expanding at all in the non-conforming areas. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just, just speak a little bit in terms of, process and, and analysis when it comes to, whenever, we looked at, taking down non-conforming homes, and, I know, Eric can attest to this, that, you would look at a property, you determine a building envelope, and then the question, the question really always, it is, the question is, can I take that footprint? Can I take the square footage of that house? And when I'm going to the drawing board on this, can I reconstruct, can I design such that it fits within the building envelope, right? And so, when the answer is yes, there is there's an obligation then at that point that you do that, but you do that to the greatest practical extent that you can. And so, and I think what's tricky with this particular lot is that, that this plan represents having done exactly that, right? It's, as the front setback, there was room to the front, and so, the house gets pulled forward to the front, right? To meet that setback and that square footage arranged such that, it fits within the building envelope, right? So it meets that conforming to the greatest practical extent of where we've, fit that square footage into the building envelope as best as practical. I agree. While essentially maintaining the same, essentially the same footprint, and location on the lot.
Can I ask one more question?
Please.
Is it within, does it seem to be acceptable if that entire, and I don't know if it can be done physically, that entire building, instead of pulling away from the east boundary, stayed or actually moved further, thereby moving the deck 2 or 3 or 4 feet away from our property line? So the entire structure going eastern instead of dropping it where it is today. Is that an option?
It has to meet the setbacks.
No, so I understand it, but if the applicants want to respond to this privacy deck issue and could provide 2, 3, 4 feet,
It would make it more non-conforming.
Yeah, it would make it more non-conforming because of the setbacks. If you look at the drawings, that's, I believe, right in front here. You'll notice that they're moving it from 11 feet to 12 feet. And so they can't move it 3 feet over because then that would be less than the 11 feet, and that would make it more non-conforming. That's their issue.
It's supposed to be 15.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm
That's right. So now we would, yeah, and your analysis is correct. You know, now in this scenario, we would actually be making this side more non-conforming, you know, which would be contrary to the language of the ordinance.
So that side is coming in 1 foot now.
Correct, yes,
In the plan, it's being moved in 1 foot.
that's correct.
You know, if you could find a nice way that works with your plan on the long side of the deck to make a very high, solid railing, that might help
Privacy.
the homeowner who is building, give them more privacy and also provide a wind barrier.
That's what we said.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard that.
that's what you were recommending, but I think it might be advantageous for the new homeowner too.
Well, yeah, I think we're looking for a win-win here, for sure. That's- we're just- And I think Arthur started the conversation saying we really haven't had the dialogue that we need to have. And I think some of that dialogue needs to include behaviors during construction, right? I mean, this is a worthwhile conversation, and I think it's off to a good start.
I'd recommend doing it before you get the building permit. Have the conversation.
Yes.
Before construction.
As for behaviors during construction,
Yeah,
that's going to be on Galen.
exactly. Yeah, that's,
Oh, piece of cake.
So, I just had one other question. So, does the spiral staircase fit inside the existing footprint? How does that fit on the old
Thought it was where the stairs used to be.
outline?
It's much smaller than the staircase that was there. The staircase that was there was a long staircase.
Linear.
You can see its shadow on there.
Well, I can see there's some, something on this drawing, C 2.1, but I don't see how the spiral staircase fits within the footprint of the existing stairway. Does it have to do that?
It
It's
doesn't.
within the footprint of the existing staircase as a X by Y.
Okay, well, that's not too clearly shown on 2.1.
If you project over that,
It's all within, so it's.
within the,
All of that square footage is within the setback, in terms of the stairs.
You're talking about the footprint, though.
Correct.
Yeah, well,
Yes, all of
yeah.
that is within the setback.
Okay,
And when you're looking at, you know, when you're looking at this, it is no more non-conforming, right?
Yes.
What we did, you take the portion of the building that is the least non-conforming, correct?
right.
And, you know, your ordinance allows for reconfiguration of that space that's within the setback, provided that it is not more non-conforming, right?
Right,
Which it isn't.
Gotcha. So, reason for my question was it just wasn't obvious to me how that worked on drawing 2.1.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to just update it a little bit to show.
Well, it's shown, you know, so the spiral staircase is shown.
I see that, yeah.
And it's also, you know, what you have on the plan is you can see on the overlay where the existing staircase, you know, currently comes down.
Okay,
And so all of that square footage is already non-conforming due to
Yep.
setback.
so the spiral staircase is less non-conforming than the existing stairs.
It's part of the overall structure, right? You know, so again,
yeah.
we don't parse out, you know, the individual building segments. You know,
Okay.
the analysis of non-conforming falls to the deck itself, right? That's the portion that is most non-conforming, correct? And so this, you know, by changing from a straight run to a spiral, we're not making that non-conforming line against the property line, that's not being affected, right? So this change does not make it more non-conforming,
Okay,
the overall house.
all right.
so you're talking strictly about, I thought you were worried about impervious surface. And I thought
Well, I
it
was actually worried
not increasing
about,
it.
distance to the property line. Is any part of the spiral staircase closer to the property line than the existing stairs?
I don't think so.
Well, if you,
It's just, I don't know.
if you look at the picture,
Yeah.
existing
It does.
stair.
Right, it occupies,
Oh,
it
oh,
It
occupies,
Cuts it right through the middle. Half of the
Right.
stairway is
Okay,
covered and half is not.
all right.
Yeah.
But they're both non-conforming.
They're
Yeah.
both non-conforming, but the spiral apparently is less non-conforming, or no more non-conforming than the existing staircase.
Correct.
That's the key thing.
well, again, you don't parse it out based on
Oh, it's the
that,
house,
that
right.
particular element. You
Okay.
look at, you look, the analysis is based off of the edge of the deck.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Right, if the spiral were at the edge of the deck, but closer to the property line, that would be more non-conforming at that point.
Okay,
But since it's further back in,
and
that's not the case.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Did we ever see if we had any hands raised?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, do we have any hands raised on, the public hearing? No.
There we go.
So I think, we're ready to close the public hearing. Thank you for coming and providing your, all of your, you can stick around, you don't have to leave. I'm just saying that I'm closing the public hearing.
Thank you. Well, I think our part of the meeting is over.
Yes, it is.
We thank you for hearing us and starting the discussion, hopefully, with the neighbor.
Yes,
Good.
that
Yes.
should work out well.
We hope so.
Predict it. Okay, so,
Thank you.
All right. So we need a motion?
do we, are we ready to take a motion on this?
Mhm.
So, Ed, since you're our
Oh, I would move to approve this procedure, with this application.
okay, are there waivers we needed on this?
I'm not aware of any waivers.
No.
I'm in general of the opinion that we're not in the business of granting waivers at this board, and I'm confused by the recent discussions.
Well, there are things we're allowed to waive, like driveway length and things like that,
Not-
What you're,
edges on roads.
what you've been waiving, Ed, is items on a plan. So information.
Submittal requirements,
Correct.
Yes.
Not performance standards,
correct.
Right.
just information on
I
a
see.
plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Tom, you're asking, did we get everything?
Yeah, we got everything we need,
I
right?
think we did. I think we did.
So, I believe you were ready to, did you actually make the motion? Yes.
I wanted to move that this application, in lieu of the discussions that we've had, giving the willingness of the applicant and the abutters to have a design that maintains the, to the degree possible, the privacy and concerns and the ability to do the construction properly in this very close abutting situation. Given that understanding, I would like to move that this application be considered considered approved.
I would second that.
Okay. So,
Please.
Approved.
approve?
Approved.
Approve.
Okay. And so Ed, you're the,
I'll have the findings for the
you'll
next
have the findings
meeting.
for the next one and take
Appreciate the willingness for discussion and
Yeah.
Thank you for entertaining that.
keeping our small town
Small.
peace.
Okay. No,
Now we have a finding of fact.
young lady who's been sitting in the back being
Very patient.
relaxed. I think
We'll be
all we
doing
need
the
to do is read the finding of facts, right?
No. It turns out,
Okay. All right, so,
there were some waivers that we discussed, but we did not formally approve.
okay. So anyhow, I've lost my,
Agenda?
agenda. Yeah, do you have one? Thank you. I'm sure it's in here, I know.
I know.
Okay, all right, thank you. I got one from Nina. Okay, we are finally to item 304, the finding of facts for 293 Goose Rocks, and Tina Hewitt Gordon is the agent, and very patient. So there are some waivers you said we need to approve?
Right. There were some waivers that we discussed that were on the planner memo, but we didn't formally approve them. And I'd like to propose that we approve, we grant the waivers for the following requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. And these involve the submission of a formal site plan as described in LUO 10.6C4, 10.6C6, 10.6C7, 10.6C8, and 10.6C9. So I'll propose that as a motion.
I would second that.
Okay. So,
I would approve.
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 Assume you don't have any objections to those.
Okay. Now I can read this.
No. Okay. So all of that being the case, we have the finding of facts. We approved your application last time.
Thank you.
So,
Can we, I know that there was some emails, but I know Nina is going to include something in the findings about the sightline verification, but I was hoping that in the planning board meeting, we could report the results of that.
Oh, yes, I can report that. We did get a memo from Kurt Moses, the deputy police chief, that the sightlines, basically, the one on the right looking out from the driveway was much more than 400 feet. I forget exactly what. It's definitely adequate. The other one was, on the left, was 390 feet, which is very reasonable in that area. I also talked to the deputy police chief, Kurt Moses, and I asked him about accident reports in that area, and he said there really weren't any. The only problem they had on Goose Rocks Road was way before that, where Guinea Road comes in. So it's a perfectly safe area as far as he's concerned.
May it stay that way. Fingers crossed.
Thank you for following up on that,
Right,
Nina. I
and you can
appreciate
take
that.
any route you want.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for reminding me about that.
Yeah, it's important to
Okay,
me.
all right, here we go, and the way I tripped over those waivers, who knows what this will sound like? Okay. Kennebunkport Planning Board, findings of fact and decision, application of 293 Goose Rocks Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, Black Rock Farm for a restaurant. Following site plan reviews pursuant to Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on April 3rd, 2024, and April 17th, 2024, and a public hearing held on April 17th, 2024, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decisions subject to the conditions enumerated below. 1, the owner of record and applicant for 293 Goose Rocks Road is Helene Lerwand, applicant, with a mailing address of P.O. Box 7019, Cape Porpoise, Maine, 04014. In an undated letter, applicant authorized Tina Hewitt Gordon, general manager of the Nonantum Resort at 95 Ocean Avenue, Kennebunkport, to act as agent in this matter. The property has a street address of 293 Goose Rocks Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, and is identified as map 25, block 5, lot 2A on the municipal tax assessor's maps. The property is located in the free enterprise zone and partially in the shoreland zone. The applicant has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a deed of sale for the property recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds books 7428, pages 259 to 264. The existing property consists of a land area of 36.31 acres and functions as a retail farm, hereinafter the farm. In an application dated March 19, 2024, applicant requests a conditional use on a seasonal basis for the Nonantum Hotel to operate a non-structural restaurant for limited impact events within the existing agricultural structures on the farm. No improvements, relocations, or other changes to the property are requested. It is submitted that the Nonantum Hotel will hold events following the farm retail hours, shuttle guests from the hotel to the farm via hotel's 2 14-passenger vehicles. 8 hotel staff and their transport vehicles will utilize the farm's employees' existing parking spaces. The hotel will provide portable restrooms at the farm as described in this application, which will be pumped after each event. No chemical pesticides will be used during the events. Lighting will be soft and diffuse for the event and contained to the property. The events will utilize only acoustical music, no amplified music, and will not be disruptive to abutting properties. The maximum number of guests per event is limited to 50. The hours of the event are restricted to between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. The maximum number of events per season, June 15th to October 15th, will be 8. Applicant has been granted waivers from the following requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Submission of a formal site plan is described in LUO 10.6, C4, C6, C7, C8, and C9. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance Guidelines for Decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings which would otherwise compel denial. On all of the findings, the finding is, on all of the rulings, the finding is yes, except for 1010 A-H, where the finding is not applicable, and 1010 A-J through K, where it is non-applicable, and M through N, where its finding is non-applicable. When a proposed development will be located within the shoreland zone or resource protection zone, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, Article 10, the town-wide regulations in Article 6, the performance standards for specific activities, and land uses in Article 7, approval of development will also require that the board makes positive findings based on the information presented that the proposed use will maintain safe and healthful conditions, A, yes, B through H are also yes, all yes. Any negative finding by the board means that the application has been denied. The application is otherwise complete. Conclusions and decision. Article 1010 of the LUO mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more findings that would otherwise compel denial. The planning board found no standard in Article 1010 which would deny the application. The planning board therefore makes the decision to approve the application with the following conditions. The applicant, pursuant to Article 1011 of the LUO, shall be restricted to the conditions listed in the Section 9A through I, which is described above, which were the restrictions listed. 2, the applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any activity may commence. 3, the applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances. Dated May 1, 2024.
I'll move that we approve those findings as read.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Approved.
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 Approve.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your time and
Now,
effort through all of this.
We wish you all the best with this venture,
Signed
too.
copies
Thank-
have to get,
Filed.
Notarized,
notarized,
Okay.
so,
Thank you.
and then they get
and so you'll
recorded.
pick them up
Yep.
from,
April.
April.
She'll be back
She'll
on
be back
vacation tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
very good, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I'll take one more motion while we're signing.
Well,
Is there any
I
more
have some other
business?
business.
Oh,
for
he
you.
has some other
Just
business.
quickly.
When did we invite this guy? I don't know.
Just
He's always got other
He does
business.
this every week.
friendly reminder, tomorrow, May 2nd, the Board of Selectmen is having a special meeting right here in this building at 6 PM to have a panel discussion for affordable housing developers, to just give insight to the Board of Selectmen and to help educate town members on affordable housing projects and hear it directly from developers. What are the challenges and opportunities that they see in the state of Maine, and especially in southern Maine? So just put that on your calendars, and then we also have May 9th, there is another public hearing, I believe, for the ordinances again. But again, those are at your discretion if you so choose.
I'm not sure I can make tomorrow night.
No,
So do you need a majority of the planning board to be at the meeting tomorrow?
not tomorrow, but you will at the May 9th, because remember,
Okay.
you decided you didn't want to have a separate.
Okay, May 9, okay.
Enough yet, then with three, would have to be here.
Got you.
Three is a quorum,
All right.
Yep.
yes.
And,
Whoever
Those are
draws the short
Thursdays, and I
straw.
I won't be there.
and the
Either
meeting,
Thursday,
and the meeting
so.
tomorrow is also on Zoom, right?
Yes, it'll be available virtual. Both meetings will be held virtual.
Okay. Oh.
So that counts as quorum too. If you aren't in the area and you can just buzz in
Oh,
to make the quorum, that would be great. But,
okay.
yep. That's it.
All right, okay.
All right,
Thank you,
now,
Galen.
we'll take the other motion there.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. Okay. Everybody agree to
Yes.
adjourn here?
Yeah.
Okay. We're done, thank you.